I have experienced a romantic heartbreak once, and that was my first. I almost died. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Not Fine Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about something that one of you requested to hear about. I think I almost ran away from talking about this, but let's go. I'll be talking about grief and breakup in the context of friendship and relationships. It's quite touchy. It's something that is not linear. I'll first talk about the impact of breakups, how breakups happen, then probably how to go through it. I think what happens when we are talking about breakup is the breakage of trust. I've heard people say that when people fight, it's not humans fighting, it's values clashing. So it's not about the fact that you just want to fight somebody, it's about something in your value that is having friction with the other person's own. So you guys now start to fight. That's why reconciliation is also in values. And if you want to have a very good relationship, that's also why they will advise you to be with somebody that has similar values with you. That way it's easier to reconcile your values. So what causes breakups is actually values. That's why we talk about misunderstandings, understandings, fights, and all that stuff. If you're not equipped enough to understand yourself and begin to understand your partner, problem starts. There is a developmental stage in our individual development that speaks about intimacy and isolation. That's just after identity and role confusion. Identity and role confusion is the adolescent stage. That's about 12 to 18 years. Then when you are entering your 20s, that's when you begin the phase of intimacy and isolation, where you're now looking for love. But the phase of identity, that's the phase where you're supposed to begin to define yourself, become an individual, grow as a person, and understand your person, your individuality. But the point of intimacy and isolation is the point where you are now merging your identity with another person's own. And the most effective way to let that happen is if you have had a solid identity. That way you can now merge with another person. But if one person has a solid identity and the other person has not figured out his or her identity, that merge becomes a problem, because one person now has an anchor and the other person doesn't. So the other person gets lost in the person that has an identity. I hope that makes sense to you. So first of all, one of the things you need to have in check before you go into a relationship is that you have a solid identity. You know your values, you know the things you hold as anchors. Now, if you don't have that, or you end up with somebody that does not have that, then you guys are headed for the rocks. If you have that and the other person has that, you now need to check your own and the other person's own. If they align, then the merging now makes sense, where both of you can live individually and at the same time live collectively. There's now a balance for both of you to walk through. So if you have misunderstandings, it's easy for you to fix those things because you can tell where they are coming from, because the identities are in check. But if you don't have this, That's where trust can be broken. That's where you can have issues in your relationships that you did not even plan for and cannot even pinpoint when they come. Now, when these things come, there's almost nothing that you can do about it. There's no way for you to deal with the issues. But if you understand this, you're already good to go. And if you understand this and you live by this, if you're going to have a breakup, it's going to be a smooth transition. It's going to be an agreement. It's going to be, hey, oh, I'm going this way, and I know that this is not the way you're going. I know you're going this way, so let's just separate and go our different paths. And it's always very easy. But then, if one person does not know their identity, they feel cheated when that kind of thing happens. This is the issue with not understanding your identity before getting into a relationship. Because a relationship, as the word implies, is relating with another person. I like to say it in this funny way, relating with another person on a ship. So it's like you bought a ship with somebody and you guys are going the same direction. That's ideally, or different directions if one person does not know where they are going to. And you're supposed to row the boat together towards where you're going to. As you're rowing the boat, you guys have to communicate because there has to be correct partnership as the thing is going on. If one person is doing more than the other person feels cheated. Now, to the break. When the break happens, there's usually something that feels like a loss of trust, broken trust. And like I said earlier, how to fix the broken trust is to look at your identity. Values are the problem. And if you can't fix it, then you have to let the person go. Now, I think I've been speaking more, or sounding like I've been speaking more in the context of romantic relationships. Now, let me come to friendship. I think that's the same thing. I did a podcast talking about friendship, and I said that your friends are the ones that are going to determine who you are or who you don't become. So the first step in moving towards who you want to become or who you don't want to become, after knowing that person, is the set of people you put around you. So in the context of romantic relationship, that's the person that is going to influence you the most. That's the person that is closest to influencing you the most. If you can get this properly, then you understand that the difference between friendship and romantic relationship is just the closeness. So you can also get heartbreak from friends. And because we have not taken our friendship very personal in this generation, we do not experience that a lot because it's not that deep. We just think that, oh, if this person, you cut the person off, you move on, you make new friends. But when it comes to romantic relationships, that's where we feel it, because obviously you have to take it seriously. But that's not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to take your friends very seriously. Yeah, all that being said, when the breakup now happens, how can you go through it? My experience made me to create a simple model. I call it the breakup, breakdown, and wake up. When you are in the place of breakup, it's like your heart is literally broken. One of my friends told me that heartbreak is a clinical diagnosis. So you can go to the hospital and they tell you that you are suffering from a heartbreak. So when that breakup happens, there's a place where you begin to break down. You go through the phases of denial. You go through the phases of grief. Go through denial. You become very angry. You begin to negotiate. Then you get depressed and you finally accept. Now, when you now accept what has happened to you, that's where you begin to wake up. Well, that's where you begin to wake up. And I believe that we should not waste pain. We should not waste how we feel. And remember, I said that if you have an identity, it's a place of you merging yourself with another person. So at some point in a relationship, you're going to lose a bit of your identity to merge with another person's identity. So when you break up, you will suffer a bit of identity crisis because that person is no longer present in your life. So what you need to begin to do, your priority at that point will be to recreate your identity. You have to become another person again. You have to start from scratch. And I think that's why our older people, our parents and guardians always tell you not to get into relationships anyhow, because that's the work of reinventing yourself is not easy. And the scars that you get from that is not what you just want to be getting every day. So you should not be jumping from one romantic relationship to another, because you are going to keep morphing into different people and you may end up not knowing yourself again. So at that point, you're now supposed to begin to reinvent yourself. And I will advise you that you should become a better person. Like I'll say, if you are at that crossroad, there are only two ways to go: the way of self-sabotaging or the way of growth, the way of becoming better. And that's the way to pick. So first of all, you have to call yourself back to yourself and begin to rebuild from scratch. Begin to, look at what you really wanted to do, what caused the problem, reevaluate. Most times people tend to not be responsible and think the other person was the problem. But there were places where you were the problem. You need to pinpoint those things and, optimize yourself, become a better person, learn something new. Because I tell you, you will have a lot of time to learn new stuff, because obviously you spent a lot of time with the other partner, the friend or romantic partner. And that time, instead of you spending it in mourning and, grieving after acceptance, you should spend it with yourself. Spend it speaking with yourself, growing yourself, and doing all that stuff. I'm tempted to say my story. Should I? I don't think it's necessary. But I'll just say a bit of my story. I I have experienced a romantic heartbreak once, and that was my first. I almost died. And that's where all the things I'm saying is coming from, because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I spoke to a lot of people, older friends and all that. What am I supposed to do? Some people gave me religious advice. Some people gave me advices from their experience, but I had to walk through it by myself. I was shocked. I was shook. And that thing I was talking about earlier about having your identity and the other person having their identity. I think that was where the problem was, because we did not have any toxic problem in our relationship at the time. We were just two naive young adults that were in a relationship trying to figure out themselves, that hit a rock, and we could not just sort it out because one person kind of knew the identity and the other person was quite confused. So the identity of the other person was infused into the other person's own, and it was just a mess and impossible to solve situation. So we both had to move on. It was painful for both of us. It was crazy. I also had a friendship breakup where one of my friends told me that if we're not going to be helping each other, I think we should move on. It was so hurtful to me. I felt the pain almost as much as I felt the pain of a breakup in a romantic relationship. But I think that when you have walked through these things and you have learned to understand that people come and go, in the end, The only person that will be with you is you. If you have understood that, then you are beginning to gain advantage in your individuality. You're beginning to become comfortable in yourself. And that's the only way you can get the balance when it comes to living collectively, living in communities. So basically, what I've said is that when you get heartbroken, there are only two ways to go: the way of self sabotage or the way of growth. And the healthy way that Not Fine preaches is the way of growth. But it is hard, it is your responsibility. Do not expect the person that broke your heart to come and give you some form of closure. Do not expect the person that broke your heart to come and heal you. Those people are not responsible for your healing. You are the one that is responsible for your healing. Only you can heal yourself if you can be responsible enough to pick up yourself and move. Remember, it's a breakup, breakdown, and a wake up. If you don't wake up, man, nobody is going to wake you up. You have to wake up, pick up something that is heavier than you, and move. If you are doing that, you are doing that for yourself. You are doing that for the community. You are doing that for our country. See, it's big. Most times we belittle our contribution to the greater community. But if you can heal, man, it means that you have healed for the next person that you will be with. But if you refuse to heal, then the next person suffers the baggage. And this is how we keep transferring baggage up and down. I hope this makes sense to you. And if you have not healed, if you picked the way of self-sabotage, it's not too late to begin to heal. Healing has no timeline. You can start today. And if you start today, you'll be better than yesterday. And that's how it keeps going. Take care of your mind, guys. Thank you for listening to me. And I hope to see you on another episode. Peace, guys.